I caught her cheating and forgave her. Similar stories? I had been seeing a girl for 3 years and it was wonderful. I couldn't believe I had found someone so perfect for me. We were living together for most of this time, but we ended up being apart for a half of a year toward the end for reasons unrelated to the relationship. Despite her being in a different state, things were still as good as ever. We made a few trips to see one another, and I thought that things were actually building up, the relationship was getting better and better. Then there was a period for a few months where she seemed to become distant. I feared the worst but assumed I was being paranoid. This girl was far too emotionally connected to me for there to be anything else going on. So I thought. I decided that I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I let this slip away over something so silly as the distance between us. Even thinking that it could somehow evaporate seemed silly, we were just way too close. I acted out of paranoia nevertheless. I called her and told her I wanted her to move back in with me, and that I couldn't stand for us to be apart any longer, and that I felt us drifting. I can't explain how horrible the following moment was. I had never heard her so sad. She was mortified and I could tell. Before she said anything, she told me I'd hang up and never speak to her again. I told her that wasn't going to happen. Maybe that prepared me. At that point I assumed cheating, but in the back of my head I was thinking she had maybe gotten a disease or something. It was in her wording, I spoiled everything forever or something like that. It felt like an eternity. I was waiting for her to tell me she had HIV. That's when she told me that she was months into a pregnancy that wasn't my doing. My heart sunk. I knew that the entire future we had always planned was gone. I told her everything would be fine and that I loved her and that accidents happen. I asked for just a few details. How far along she was, and if she was being healthy. I then told her not to worry, she'd hear from me again, but that I had to go. Afterward, I went back and looked at our phone and email history to try and pinpoint the day that she did this. Assuming it was only once and with one person. The worst part was that she cheated on me when everything seemed fine. We had talked that day and had a hilarious chain of emails. It was such betrayal. Believe me, it hurt. The seriousness of a pregnancy too. This wasn't just a BO job. She was carrying some other guy's kid. Like what was my dream was merely some other asshole's accident. After all this time, I still can't avoid crying when talking about the details of it. When I called her back, I told her she was forgiven. I was honest and told her that I was hurt and that I can't trust her anymore, but I wasn't cruel. She knew how hurt I was, but I think she was hurting much worse. Both of our dreams were shattered, but at least I didn't need to live with thinking it was my fault. I'll admit I had some horrible feelings and thought about some horrible things I'd like to say, but I just had no desire to be vengeful. When you love someone, you don't want revenge, you want understanding. I was just sad. This all happened a few years ago. For the sake of brevity, I'll sum this up by saying she had her baby and he is wonderful. I stayed with her as a friend through the entire ordeal. We are still close friends today. I am so happy that I didn't react harshly. She and I are not together. That trust is broken. However, I retained a friend, had a great life lesson, as did she. I also got to practice love when it wasn't easy. Though it makes me sad to think about the details of this event, I'm very happy that I still have this person in my life. I'm very happy I wasn't mean to her when she was at her lowest point. I'd regret that today. Edit. This is the one comment I will respond to, because I feel there needs to be some context. The moment she told me this information, it was over. She knew it and I knew it. The conversation was not going to be about hurt feelings and bruised egos, because now I was talking to someone who was pregnant with a child. I talked to her the way I would talk to any friend who was in a similar kind of crisis. It wasn't about me or us, it was about her and the baby. The worst thing I could have done was make her have any resentment around her pregnancy. It was important for the sake of this baby that from the get-go there were no hard feelings involving his existence. Furthermore, she was already beating herself up really badly, like really badly. I was worried. Even a half-hearted cry for help kind of event could have been detrimental to the health of the baby. She needed not to hear she was forgiven, but hear the words that would be said if she really was forgiven. She needed to be given a little grace. No, she never said anything to hint she would hurt herself either, and she never held me emotionally captive. Once she was stable, I removed myself from the situation until after the pregnancy was over, and she was fine with that. She never played any mind tricks. I'm not a doormat, though I really don't take offense to being called one in this case. She turned into a desperate friend at that moment, so I had to respond accordingly. Protecting my pride was the last thing I was concerned about. I knew she was in a worse place, so it was my choice to do my part in making sure she and the baby got through this okay. I'm a strong person and I recovered just fine. My little brother gets walked all over by meaningless women because his life is controlled by his penis. There are other people in this thread who have taken the girl back. I know doormats. I'm no doormat. Someone also said I'm being taken advantage of. I promise you I'm not. At least no more than any friendship is a pair of people taking advantage of each other. I quickly drew boundaries. Yes, her and I are friends, but I've since moved on and I've been in a few relationships that have been normal and healthy. Despite getting a bit sad when retelling the story, it's really not much of a big deal at all anymore. I wouldn't even be able to guess in what way I'm being taken advantage of. No more replies from me. Thanks everyone. I've loved reading your comments, and I still am. In case it isn't completely clear, I am not in a relationship with this girl anymore. There seem to be a lot of commenters that miss that. Also, I fixed the word here to here. Sorry. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, I caught her cheating and forgave her. Was a big man, handled it maturely. Was understanding. Then she admitted to me, a year or so later, another affair she was having. Once more, I handled that like a pro. Listened to her concerns. Talked through it. Really understood where she was coming from. Later, we got married. That was great. Until out of the blue, she left me for someone with whom she was cheating on me. If I could go back and change that decision to forgive her and be understanding and listen to her, I would without the slightest hesitation. I sure as hell wouldn't stay with her, knowing what I know now. Since then, I've had a zero-tolerance policy for it, and have been much happier. The few times it's been an issue, I haven't looked back, and many years on now, I've never regretted it. To boil it down, when you have standards, you attract a better quality of person. Redditor follow-up, forgiving a cheater doesn't mean you have to stay with them. Even the op said he did not stay in a relationship with this girl. He simply said he forgave her and felt no need for vengeance because he loved her. Redditor 2, my GF got pregnant. Now I'm in my 40s. Married to her for over 20 years. Couple of children. When first child was 11 over 10 years ago, my wife told me I was not the biological father. I cannot express the hurt I felt that day and still feel to this day. I have tried to forgive, I cannot. It has even affected my relationship with my child over 20 now, and who does not know. I am now getting a divorce, many reasons, but my failure to forgive is top of list. There are no life lessons to be taken from this. We each react and behave differently. Frankly, I consider myself a failure. It will not be easy for me or my wife. Human sexuality still baffles me. S-time invokes large emotions. Be careful with it. Redditor 3, my wife cheated on me when we were first dating with the sociopathic pedophile that had groomed and molested her from age 13. He had brainwashed her into basically believing what was good was whatever brought him the most pleasure, and then he used her guilt for dating me to try to get her to do very ducked up things. These included having a webcam on for him to watch the losing of our virginities. This may seem like a long story already, but it gets even longer than that. Few people are in this exact situation, but I had gone through mental abuse as a child and understood how he could get her to do the things he did. She prosecuted him, but it took years for her to slowly get over everything. For a while she shifted the good as partner's pleasure mentality to me, and that took a long time to get her out of. She would think that if we weren't having time frequently enough, I'd leave her, so if I was sick all of a sudden it'd be the end of the world. Having experienced it personally, it's weird to see someone else go through all these things. Her situation was much worse than mine. This did expand my mind quite a bit when it came to judging people. I have trouble even hating the pedophile. I think he's broken enough to need the government to take him away from society, but I wouldn't say he's evil. Just so selfish or ignorant not to care about the effects of his actions. The more and more I've lived, the more I've realized how ducking complex everything in this world is. It's hard sometimes to imagine that the person sitting across from you at a red light is a full person with a family, friends and lovers. There are a lot of issues in this world that need to be addressed, but these realizations have shown me that the largest cause for strife is dehumanization. It's easy to not really believe someone else is as complex as you, to simplify their behavior to the extremes of good and bad. My wife didn't want to hurt me, but she did in a particularly horrific way. Through all that, she did love me and still loves me. All too often we judge the person and only derivatively judge the action. On top of that, we frequently don't take into account the surrounding influences to the action. We've worked out well and there's been no more infidelity. She's still sorry to this day for what she did, and as I understand it, one of the things that gnaws at her is how she got so ducked up in that situation. Looking back, she knows what she should have done, but it didn't seem clear while going through it. Something like that is torture, looking into yourself and seeing someone you don't recognize. Redditor follow-up: my wife cheated on me when we were first dating with a sociopathic pedophile that had groomed and molested her from age 13. This reminded me of Hemingway: all you have to do is write one true sentence. Write the truest sentence that you know. Redditor 4, having been cheated on, I personally would never, ever do it to anyone else, and honestly the level of selfishness and cowardliness involved in the decision makes my mind reel. It doesn't happen on accident. People take days, or months, and keep making the decision to throw your trust away and damage your very ability to trust and relate to others to the greatest extent they can, all for their own gratification. They go to bed, over and over again, with this knowledge sitting in their mind. They think about it all the time, and make the conscious decision to duck your world up. Forgive her or not, maybe she can't help who she is, or whatever. It's undeniable that it is a poisonous way to behave though, and that it makes the world a worse place to live. I don't know why you would keep someone that dangerous and self-centered in your life. Edit: one more thing to think about. She cheated on you without a scene-dom. She chose to take that risk not just with her own health, but with yours. She could have given you HIV and directly caused your painful, horrible death. Something to think about. Redditor follow-up: this is the best response, simply because fuck you guys isn't a moralizing little girl about it. Redditor 6, I had a girl cheat on me and it started out quite similarly. We were together for years, had plans for the future, etc. Got the call one day and I have something to tell you and you're going to hate me, which is, by the way, a potential form of emotional abuse. She revealed to me what had happened and I was seriously pissed, but after cooling off I called back the same day and forgave her. Perhaps the difference is I decided to get back together with her, because I just couldn't stand the thought of being without her. She ended up cheating on me 5 or 6 more times. At the time I thought the first 4 or 5 weren't really cheating because she'd break up with me for a day or two to hook up with some guy and then call me crying in the next couple days telling me she knew I'd hate her but blah blah and she really wanted to be with me. Eventually when she called to say we should break up again I just said okay and it stayed that way. I forgave her for hurting me, though, and let her lean on me for emotional support for the next 6 months that she spent with an abusive new boyfriend. This was because she was dangling the hope that we could get back together in front of me as a carrot. Once I finally realized how absolutely moronic I was being, which I had not done in spite of my friends telling me to my face constantly how moronic I was being, I gave that up. I told her we needed to stop talking, and after a while and a new, better girlfriend I was comfortable talking to her again but refused to be more than casual instant messaging friends. Now, even though she has acknowledged how much she used me, she doesn't understand why I don't want to be real friends with her. I basically wish I had been harsher on her because she just didn't get it. It so happens that her usual type is domineering as shoals, so she never got the chance to trample someone like my old self again, but I have no doubt she would have without a second thought. I don't agree with the more immature parts of the other dude's method, insinuating he had cheated too, insinuating he had an STD, jerking off in her face cream, spitting in her drink, but sometimes calling up just how messed up their actions have been as a long-term satisfying course of action, and I wouldn't say it is always reprehensible. I'd also discount the fake ring as it is simply not necessary. I'm no good at lying, but the general idea of showing her how much your relationship meant to you and then breaking it off doesn't strike me personally as immature, and it is not a given that he will regret this in the future. Redditor 7, nobody said being the better man was easy, dramatic, or something the majority would do as well. Upvote. Redditor 8, my ex-girlfriend cheated on me at 6 months with an ex of hers while drunk. Eventually, I took her back and forgave her, even made efforts to rebuild the trust she destroyed. Then she slept with him again 6 months later, after breaking up with me by phone so it wouldn't be cheating a few minutes before the fact. Then she tried to claim she was taken advantage of a few weeks later when I came home to make the breakup formal. Cheating once I could forgive. Do it again, you're dead to me. And yet I still don't believe once a cheater, always a cheater. She's been with the same guy since, infidelity free. Redditor 9, nice try, Theo. Redditor 10, there is nothing more disrespectful you can do to someone than cheat on them. The only way I would talk to anyone that cheated on me was if I had a child with them. There is nothing mature about being cheated on and forgiving. It's not a whoops, these things happen. His penis just fell in my vagina totally unprovoked. It is not like you and this girl have to bump into each other or be around each other every single day, so you have to be decent to each other. I wouldn't have gotten revenge just because she's preggers with no baby daddy, but why would you bend over backwards to forgive someone who so blatantly disrespects you as to put your health, her health and your relationship at risk? Redditor 11, when you love someone, you don't want revenge, you want understanding. I was just sad. It's really amazing how true this is. Although my situation is slightly different, I experienced the distance forming and then the huge bomb dropping. I have to say your statement summed up everything perfectly. Dang it, someone sprinkled Jubinero on my keyboard again. My eyes are all itchy. Redditor 12, hop off your high horse, bro. Did you get a call and hear your girl in foreplay with another man? Did you see your girl slurping another man's tube steak? Did you have to see her, unrepentant, for a week after that, and did you have to pretend that everything was fine until you decided what course of action to take? No. You got a phone call, a respectful, non-graphic, repentant phone call. That is worlds different from seeing your unrepentant lover in the act. You did well, being mature about your situation, but your situation is not the same as the one you say you were disheartened by. Redditor follow-up, did you get a call and hear your girl in foreplay with another man? Did you see your girl slurping another man's tube steak? Did you have to see her, unrepentant, for a week after that, and did you have to pretend that everything was fine until you decided what course of action to take? The situations were different, yes. However, the revenge guy is a human being who presumably had a choice in how to handle the situation and handled it in the worst way possible other than murder. I've been cheated on, and I have cheated 8 years ago now, divorced. I have been in long-term relationships since then and have not cheated since. I can't tell you how disappointed I was when I read Revenge Guy's follow-up. It was like he took all the worst possible Reddit suggestions and tossed them in a salad of hate. Redditor 13, most of the comments I'm seeing here are by people who forgave their partners but ended up getting cheated on again and felt like chumps. Obviously that happens sometimes, but I want to weigh in to send the message that that's not always how it is. Here is a story from the other side of the equation. When I went to college, I had, for some time, been in a relationship with a man whom I loved deeply. We had a strong connection and plans for the future, but I was weak and wanted the carefree lifestyle of a young, single college girl. I cheated him not too long before my freshman year ended, and we broke up soon after, although I didn't tell him I had been unfaithful. What I did was weak, selfish, and short-sighted. I believed I had the right to act the way I pleased, with no regard for his feelings or the commitments he had made to me. It was a really serious relationship to be in at the young age of 18, but that didn't give me the right to be unfaithful. I should have addressed the reasons why my devotion was faltering, not gone looking for other people. The more I reflected on our relationship, the more I realized that I'd lost a good bit of my integrity alongside an important and irreplaceable connection. Anyway, I got my shit together, didn't cheat on anyone again, and a good bit of time later, ran into my ex in a really serendipitous way. We basically followed our hearts back to each other and I came clean about all the yes that I had done behind his back. He ran the emotional gamut of finding out how I'd betrayed him and seriously considered cutting me out of his life forever, but the more we talked about it and the more he could objectively hear my remorse and apology through his own pain, the more he realized that, just as the op said, when you love someone you don't want revenge, you want understanding. Or as my partner said, when you love someone, at times it means recognizing that who he is more than what he has done. It took us a long time to navigate the fallout of my mistakes, but now our relationship is exponentially stronger than it ever was. Redditor 14. You know, in comparing both of these stories, I can see both sides. On the side of revenge, it takes a man to really stand up for themselves like that and take things into their own hands. On the other side, I believe it takes quite a bit of courage and manliness to be forgiving. And props to the girl in this story for at least being honest. You, sir, are a truly great individual. Redditor follow-up, the girl in this story wasn't honest. She only revealed all when confronted. If she was honest, she would have told him what was going on right away, instead of lying to him for months. In cases like this, omission of the truth is just as bad as outright lying. Redditor 15, I caught him cheating, and I forgave him. It took a while, of course, to gather myself from the situation, but I came back stronger and wiser from it. I wouldn't want to live through that hell of betrayal again, but the experience has helped me put things in perspective. In particular, I learned the true value and importance of intrinsic values in a relationship. I would like to think that money will never be a big factor in my future relationships. My ex and I would spend insane amounts of dollars every time a birthday, anniversary, V-Day, etc. would come around, but for what? There was no real respect, trust, or intimacy in our relationship. So, I came out of that breakup realizing that I no longer need, or even want, diamond rings or expensive clothes. None of those things really matter when it boils down to it. I just desire companionship. I don't think that's too much to ask for, is it? We're friends now, and that's how I like it. Even though he cheated on me, it doesn't mean that I am any better, or that he is an evil person. We're all flawed human beings trying to make it in this world. Nice guys are hard to come by, and finding one who's compatible with you is even harder, but I still have hope in the future for me only because I was able to forgive both him and myself for what happened. Redditor follow-up, good luck. I'm not sure why nice guys are hard to come by. Nice guys seem to have a lot of trouble finding women willing to give them a second glance. Maybe that's just fat nice guys. I haven't sorted this one out yet. Redditor 16. First let me say once you get over it you'll realize being single ducking rules. Back to the story. I actually didn't find out my ex had been cheating on me until a month after we broke up. I was cleaning out the trunk of my car and I found a camera that I didn't recognize, so I turned it on to see what was on it. It turned out to be hers, and it had a lot of pictures of us going back almost 3 years. Since we had broken up on good terms, I was just flipping through the pictures reminiscing until I got to pictures dated about 3 months before we broke up. There were only 3 pics. The first picture was her and a friend out at a bar dancing with some guys. Second was her back in a hotel room kissing the guy, and the third was them two laying in bed, again kissing but without any shirts on. I was ducking furious. In the 3.5 years we had been together I had never cheated on her. Hell, I had even several opportunities and somehow I had the willpower to resist getting some strange. So I called her up, told her I had her camera and I'd take it up and drop it off. Once I got there and gave it to her, I asked if there was anything she wanted to tell me. Of course she said no. I stayed calm and told her that I never wanted to hear from her again. That was 11 months ago and I haven't spoken to her since. To be honest, it really just confirmed a lot of suspicions I had all along. For example, one time I drove her to the airport to go see her family in Florida. Like usual, whenever she would go on vacation or wherever she would never answer her phone. Something important came up and I really needed to get in touch with her, so I got the number from her parents and called her family. They had no idea what I was talking about and told me they hadn't seen her. I was so angry I was going to break up with her when she got home, but of course she talked me out of it with some bullshit story. She fed me some line about visiting one of her friends she had went to school with who was suicidal and needed someone to talk to and didn't think I would understand. I'm just lucky the whole thing is over. After 3.5 years it was at that get married or call it off point, and I'm glad we opted for the latter. We got together when we were 19 and I'm 23 now. I'm definitely not ready for marriage. Apparently she was. She got engaged to some guy not 6 months after we broke up and is about to get married. The funny part is it's not the guy from the pictures. Sucks for her fiancé. Found out after we broke up. Got over it and life kicks much more ass now. Redditor 17, I've been reading so much about cheating that I feel all paranoid now. Redditor follow-up, me too. Well, more so depressed. It just makes me feel like I'm the only person in the world who wouldn't cheat on someone. Redditor 18, you have my respect. You acted like an adult. I totally understand one's desire to get revenge on an unfaithful GFBF spouse. But in the end, you'll still have a broken heart and a bruised ego. Getting revenge, to me, is dangerous territory. In the heat of the moment, vengeful people can do some pretty horrendous things. It's just not worth it. With time, the horror of the event, especially cheating, will fade. People go on with their lives. Everyone has the power to get revenge. It takes a mature person to forego their impulses and take the high road. When you think about it, if someone is cheated on, they're really pissed off that their partner gave in to temptation and intentionally hurt them. Revenge is very similar. We let our immediate emotion get the better of us. In one situation, anger wins out. In the other, lust wins out. How can we hold others to a standard that we can't live up to, when the pressure is on? Redditor follow-up, everyone has the power to get revenge. It takes a mature person to forego their impulses and take the high road. When you think about it, if someone is cheated on, they're really pissed off that their partner gave in to temptation and intentionally hurt them. If only this were true. There is an entire generation of men and women out there who will let someone walk all over them as long as they get a little trickle of affection from them. A very close friend of mine had his first girlfriend at age 23, and he was a desperate man by then. She was a total BTCH who was abusive in every way imaginable. He didn't have much before he started dating her, and what little he had he gave up for her money, friends, career. They got engaged a year into the relationship. Everyone told him it was a bad idea. Without the support of his friends and family, he eloped. The next time I saw him was in the hospital. It was the first time I had seen him be himself in years. He was calm, reasonable, and didn't have the appearance of a scorned puppy on his face. 8 months into his marriage he walked in on her cheating, in his own house, in his own bed. For the first time in his life he stood up to her. He yelled at her and said, "How could you do this?" And from the way he described it, rather than being apologetic, she started yelling at him about what a pussy he was and how the problem wasn't with what she did. The problem was that he caught her. She said everything would be fine if you hadn't seen this. Then she attacked him and put her thumb in his eye socket. Long story short, he's divorced, broke, jobless, has 40% vision in one eye, but for the first time in a long time he's okay. Redditor 19, at the risk of a flurry of downvotes, I'll be honest. I'm having a hard time with this forgiveness of cheating thing. Or, at least, forgiveness and remaining close friends. Let me tell you why. Cheating is one of the most despicable possible things one person can do to another person. It's a blatant betrayal of trust, something you do to someone you neither love nor respect. If you're in so deep over a girl that you want to continue a friendly relationship with her, that's fine. But, realize that she has already proven that she doesn't think much of you and that you're opening yourself up to further betrayal and humiliation. From her point of view, she did her worst and you came back. You are now her tool to use or discard as she pleases. Redditor follow-up, truth. I never understand how cheaters can continue on normally in their relationships, all the while knowing what they know. It's got to be going through their head constantly, and that being the case, it seems obvious they don't give two s about what they're doing to their partner. Redditor 20, edit, Op asked about similar stories, and I assumed he meant forgiving a cheater. I didn't imply that I was addressing Op's situation at all. My boyfriend was absolutely trashed at a club and ended making out with another girl. He came home and spilled his guts to his mom about it. He was pretty upset. She basically told him to make sure I never find out. About a month later, he came clean. Honestly, it only bothered me for a bit. I am a bit weary of him getting drunk in public without me, but I totally forgive him and am glad he told me. If someone cheats and regrets it, I think it's fair to give them another chance. We all make mistakes. Redditor follow-up, did you miss the part where the chick had the other guy's baby inside her? Redditor 21, every girlfriend I've had except one has cheated on me, and I forgave them all and was subsequently dumped a month or two afterwards. Every time. Oh, the one that didn't cheat on me? She dumped me 2 days ago. Valentine's Day. Motherfucker. Redditor follow-up, not to be a douche but it sounds like you let yourself get walked all over. Why the duck would you get back with someone after they cheated on you? Do you believe that you are that pitiful that you will never find anyone who doesn't treat you like shit? Learn from your mistakes, bruh. Redditor 22, I cheated on a girlfriend with another girl I knew while on vacation, then admitted it to the girlfriend when I got back and then ended our relationship because I felt like dirt for doing it. I didn't ask for forgiveness, I didn't ask her to take me back. I didn't feel like I deserved any of that. Point being, not all cheaters are heartless. I have convictions and I still feel bad about cheating to this day. If I ever cheated again, I don't know how I'd handle it. I could barely deal with myself the first time. I've had 2 relationships since, as well as one that has been continuing for almost 3 years now. Cheating made me realize where my priorities were and now I'm a better person because of it. Do I regret it? Sure, but I owe who I am now to who I was then. Redditor 23, if I caught my husband cheating, that would be it for us. We have an understanding that if either of us cheat, the marriage is over. No counseling, no therapy, just divorce. Redditor 24, thank you for being a wonderful human being. Redditor 25, that's nice if that works for you. But I have never cheated, never will, and I expect the same level of respect and self-control from my partner. Redditor 26, I caught her cheating, and I killed that BTCH. Not before forcefully having my way with her, of course. It's been a long time since 1990, but that harlot had it coming. She didn't love America, and she called me small DCK. Whatever, she got what was coming to her. I'm Glenn Beck. I mean, shit. Redditor 27, you were in a LDR, you and she aren't together now. You didn't catch her blowing a guy, and she was honest with you. You can't compare the two. Redditor 28, I read that other guy's story and this is where you nail him to the cross. When you love someone, you don't want revenge, you want understanding. Amen. I once cheated on the woman who is my wife today. I told her about 1 year into our relationship 8 years ago that I had cheated on her and she broke down and cried and begged me to never do it again. I explained that I was simply in a shoal with no real excuse. She understood, hugged me and forgave me for my actions. If the shoe would have been on the other foot then, I would have gotten my revenge. I just couldn't believe any person on earth would really forgive someone for something so cruel. That day she taught me that someone on earth loves me for everything that I am, good and bad. I will never again take that for granted by the very person who had every right in my mind to take their own cold revenge. We're happier now more than ever with kids and all. I thank God every day for her. She is my angel. Always. Redditor follow-up, you walk on her. She stays, begs you to not walk on her. Yet she's a keeper. That soulful man. Redditor 29, I used to be a very successful banker, with a beautiful wife and a lovely home. This was all shattered when I discovered she was cheating on me with a golf pro. When I found out I was furious. I drove my car to his country club where I knew they were staying, my revolver and a box of bullets on the passenger seat. I thought I was going to kill them both in the heat of passion, but somehow I just could not bring myself to do it. Fighting back tears, I drove away. The following morning they were both found dead and I was promptly arrested and faced a jury of my peers and a double murder charge. I was found guilty. To everyone it seemed like such an open and shut case. I was to spend 2 consecutive life sentences in a notorious correctional facility in Maine. During the first night, the chief guard beat the shit out of an inmate because of his crying and complaining. He ended up beating him to death. About a month later, I approached another inmate named Red, who was known to be able to acquire certain things. I asked him if he could find me a rock hammer, under the pretense of a hobby in rock collecting. Though other prisoners considered me a really cold fish, Red saw something in me, and took a liking to me from the start. Red thought I intended to use the hammer to engineer my escape one day, but when the tool arrived and he saw how small it was, Red put aside the thought that I could ever use it to dig my way out of prison. Over the first 2 years of doing time, I worked in the prison laundry. Somehow I ended up attracting attention from the sisters, a group of prisoners who sexually assaulted other prisoners. This was probably the darkest period of my life, and I am not proud of it, but without too many connections they sometimes cornered me and I was forced to endure sexual abuse. Red pulled some strings, and got me a break by getting me a work detail tarring the roof of one of the prison's buildings. During the job one day, I overheard the chief guard Hadley complaining about having to pay taxes for an upcoming inheritance. I carefully approached, using my expertise as a banker to let Hadley know how he could shelter his money from the IRS. I managed to convince him that I could help with his taxes in exchange for some cold beers for my fellow inmates. Warden Norton heard about the help, and used a prison inspection to size me up. Soon, after asking Red for Rita Hayworth, I was once more encountered by the sisters. This time, I resisted, and was brutally beaten, putting me in the infirmary for a month. Bugs, the leader of the sisters, spent a week in solitary. But when he came out, Hadley and his men were waiting in his cell. They beat him so bad he was left paralyzed, and transferred to a prison hospital, never to bother me again. When I got out of the infirmary, I found a bunch of rocks and a poster of Rita Hayworth, presents from Red and his buddies. I ended up being sent to work with Brooks, an aging inmate in the prison library, where I set up a makeshift desk to provide services to other guards, including the warden, with income tax returns and other financial advice. My practice became so appreciated that even guards from other prisons, when they came for inter-prison baseball matches, sought my financial advice as well. After 6 years of writing letters, I received $200 from the state for the library, along with a collection of old books, Reader's Digest, condensed books and records. I once put a record of Mozart on a turntable and channeled the music through a PA system. I just turned up the volume and locked the office where the record player was to prevent interference by the warden and guards. That stunt landed me in solitary for a week, but it was worth it. With the enlarged library and more materials, I began to teach those inmates who wanted to receive their high school diplomas. Not long afterward, Brooks threatened to kill another prisoner in order to avoid getting paroled. I was able to talk him down. Brooks was paroled. He later sent a letter to his friends about how hard it was for an institutionalized prisoner to get by on the outside. He ended up hanging himself at the halfway house where he was staying. The warden continually profited on my knowledge of bookkeeping and devised a scheme whereby he put prison inmates to work in projects which he won by outbidding other contractors cheap labor from the prisoners. Occasionally, he let others get some contracts if they bribed him. I laundered money for the warden by setting up many accounts in different banks, along with several investments, using a fake identity, Randall Stevens. I shared the details only with my friend, Red. Funnily enough, I had to go to prison to learn how to be a criminal. In 1965, a young prisoner named Tommy came to the prison. One day he happened to mention that some years ago, he had a cellmate who boasted about killing a man who was a pro golfer at the country club he worked at, along with his lover. The ducker even laughed at how I ended up going to the can for the murders. As much as this information dug up old painful memories, it filled me full of hope that I might still one day be a free man. With this new information, I brought the matter to the warden's attention, expecting he could help me get another trial with Tommy as a witness. The reaction from Norton was the contrary of what I had hoped for. Fearing the end of the lucrative ill-gotten money that I was looking after for him, Norton had Tommy shot dead by Hadley under the guise of an escape attempt. I was sent to solitary confinement for 2 months to put me back in my place. Afterwards, I returned to the usual daily prison life, and felt a bit broken. One day I laid my soul to Red, about how although I didn't kill my wife, my personality drove her away, which led to her death. I said if he ever got free, I'd like to go to Zihuatanejo, a beach town on the Pacific coast of Mexico. I then told Red how I got engaged. Me and my wife then girlfriend went up to a farm in Buxton, Maine, to a large oak tree at the end of a stone wall. We made love under the tree, after which I proposed to her. I told Red that, if he should ever be paroled, he should look for that field, and that oak tree. There, under a large black volcanic rock that would look out of place, I had a box buried that I wanted Red to have. I refused to reveal what might be in that box. One day I asked for rope, leading Red and his buddies to suspect I was going to commit suicide. At the end of the day, the warden asked me to shine his shoes for him and put his suit in for dry cleaning before retiring for the night. The following morning, I was not accounted for. The warden would have us at bricks when he found out my shoes were in his shoebox instead of his own. The night of my escape, it was storming. I wore Norton's shoes to my cell, figuring nobody would notice. I packed some papers and Norton's clothes into a plastic bag, tied it to myself with some rope, and escaped through the hole I have been carving for years behind the Rita Hayworth poster on my cell wall. I got down to a sewer main. Using a rock, I hit it in time with the lightning strikes and eventually burst it. I crawled 500 yards through Esset and PSS to a nearby river. There, I washed off and changed into the warden's clothes. All the authorities found were my prison uniform, a used bar of soap and one of my rock hammers beaten down to nearly nothing. That morning, I walked into the Maine National Bank in Portland, where I had put Warden Norton's money. Using the assumed identity as Randall Stevens, and with all the necessary documentation, I walked out with a cashier's check. I cashed it at over a dozen area banks, netting over $370,000. Before I left the first bank with my check, I asked them to drop a package in the mail. It was Warden Norton's books, and they went right to the Portland Daily Bugle newspaper. Shortly after, I sent Red a postcard from Fort Hancock, Texas, with nothing written on it. Red finally got paroled. He followed my instructions, hitchhiking to Buxton and arriving at the stone wall I described. Just like I said, there was a large black stone. Under it was a lunchbox containing a large sum of cash and instructions to find me. I said I needed somebody who could get things for a project of mine. Red violated his parole and left the halfway house. He took a bus to Fort Hancock, where he crossed into Mexico. We finally reunited on the beach of Zihuatanejo on the Pacific coast. Redditor 30, when I was 13, a family friend shared some wisdom with me. Some people are capable of cheating, some people aren't. The willingness to cheat is a personality trait that can't be magically turned off. If she cheats once, mark my words, she will cheat again. I laughed that advice off. I honestly thought that people could be fixed. My ex-fiancée cheated on me. She claimed that she had had a mental breakdown and made a terrible decision and was sorry. She said it would never happen again. I took her word for it. Fast forward 3 years, I went into the doctor for get some blood work done. He comes back to me a week later and says, "Look, I've got some bad news. You have an STD." It was curable. Thank God I went back to my then fiancée and confronted her. Turns out that she cheated on me 3 other times since the first incident, but assured much that 2 of the times were a mental breakdown and the other time it was sorta basically rape. Edited for clarity. Redditor 31, I think you summed it up best with, when you love someone, you don't want revenge, you want understanding. I was just sad. I've been there and felt the same pain. But I never really wanted to get back at them for it. It just sucks. Redditor 32, this made me teary. Upvote. Redditor follow-up, serious question, not intended as an insult, please don't take it the wrong way. Have you ever been unfaithful? You seem like you relate strongly to the girl in this story, not the guy. Redditor 33, not only did I forgive her, it turned me on. Now she has multiple BFs and I not only tolerate it, I encourage it. It's a total turn on knowing my lady is getting shafted by a big huge piece of man meat. She even does it with 2 guys at once sometimes. All safe time of course. Redditor follow-up, I guess that explains your username. I don't really understand why some men enjoy this. Perhaps you could explain for me? I could understand swinging or swapping where both parties are equally involved. I don't think I could ever understand totally open relationships or ones where one partner got to sleep with whomever they wished. I wouldn't want my significant other to do it and I wouldn't feel right doing it to her. Most of all, I'm just curious as to what makes a relationship like this work. Redditor 34, you can only forgive from a position of power. Otherwise you're just a wimp. Cheating is a Darwinian FKU. It's too serious to be docile about it. Redditor 35, you sir, are a real man. To be dealt such a heavy blow, respond maturely and intelligently, is a testament to your character. You have both my upvote, and hopefully more meaningfully my respect. Redditor 36, after reading the comments, it seems that the opposite time who has been forgiven and granted another chance knows in the back of their head that they can get away with it, so they do. Verdict, forgive them, but don't let them back into relationship status. Redditor 37, just partially related, in The Red Queen Matt Ridley explains how cheating wives tend to be more fertile when they are with their lover instead of their husband, both in the timing of the intercourse in relation to their cycle and in the type of orgasm they have. From an evolution point of view, the best scenario for a woman is to have a caring husband who will take of the kids' welfare, and a sexy beast lover who will give good genes to the kids. So yeah, you shouldn't cheat, but if you do, just know that evolution wants you to be pregnant with your affair, so you might want to put some extra attention about that. Personally, I'm very binary in who I trust, it's either 1 or 0. Good on you for forgiving. Redditor follow-up, I would think it would be 0 and 0, but then again perhaps C is outdated. Redditor 38, it makes me uneasy just reading that. I am not sure I would be able to react the same way, even if I chose to. But as long as you are happy with your decision, that is what matters most. I am glad you are not still with her though. It is good that you are friends, but once you break that trust and bond, there is no going back from that. Redditor 39, I think the big difference here is that the other guy actually witnessed his GF blowing some guy. That alone would be enough to make a person crazy. Not discounting your tale, but even you didn't forgive this lady and stay with her. That's great that you didn't go out with a bang like the other guy, but I can understand why he would have wanted to do what he did. Redditor follow-up, this chick left much worse incriminating evidence. A baby. I'd rather have seen the BJ relative. It's all relative than have some dude's baby inside of the love of my life. Redditor 40, okay, I have two sides of this story. I caught my wife riding another guy in our spare room on Father's Day morning, covered in her own blood. I lost her at a rave on Nye, found her a distance away walking with some guy. Followed them to his tent, watched them make out and then walked away when they started to undress. Went to propose to her, found out she'd been seeing someone for months. Found out she slept with someone from her work 3 weeks before we got married. I moved past it each time, and stayed with her, as we had a daughter together. You look at your child, and you feel what you feel, and you suck it up. As far as I'm aware, forgiveness is a nice concept, but I'm not sure humans are really capable of it. So she cheated on me many times, and after a period of years I in turn cheated on her. I think she cheated because she needed the ego boost. She was always overweight, and especially after the baby. I cheated back out of spite, and the need to feel masculine again, and because I've always had a way with crazy hot women. But that's not even the other side of the story. I introduced my childhood friend, 2 decades we had known each other, to a girl from our social circle. They hit it off, had a baby together, and got married. I was best man. My wife and I had broken up, and the social circle got together for the 30th birthday for the maid of honor at my wedding. I was avoiding everyone as I was still kind of raw from the bust up, and kind of brushed past the girl I was best man for in a corridor. She put her hand on my chest, and said, "Do you hate me or something?" I said, "No, I love you," in the way that I have always done to the select group of girls in our circle who have known me for many years. As I say it, I feel it. The real deal. I brushed off again, and spent many months idly wondering how it was that I was in love with someone in the way that I was without any understandable cause. By chance we ended up out together one night due to last-minute cancellations. Much drink later, we find out the feeling is mutual. Did I mention she was my ex's best friend? We don't sleep together out of respect, but we start spending time together. I move overseas for 2 years rather than do that to a best friend. 2 months into it she leaves her guy to come be with me. So, I've been both guys when it comes these situations. To the guys who forgave but still dumped the girl, that's not forgiveness. It's some kind of fiendish need to use your martyr status to torture someone. You man up and take it, or you bail. Redditor 41, my first long-term girlfriend was dating someone else when we started dating. I found out later but believed that what we had was something special and that she had just made a mistake with him. I dated her for 2 years and finally got suspicious that she was cheating on me, as she had the previous boyfriend. I confronted her, but again, since I wanted to live in some fairy tale world where bad people can reform, so I accepted her lies. I caught her cheating 2 weeks later. I ended it there. We went our separate ways and she went to a different college. Over a Christmas break, she came home and we started hanging out and fool around again. She admitted that she had recently gotten engaged. It was just a meaningless hookup for me, but I felt bad for the guy on the other end, as I had been in his position a few years before. That was 3 years ago, and I hadn't heard from her until Christmas this year. Her husband had just left for boot camp and she wanted to rekindle our relationship. I said no as I have developed standards and she got pissed. Bottom line, cheaters will always cheat. Period. There is no changing their ways. People who stay with cheaters are too weak to do what they should and leave. Redditor follow-up, dude, you should tell her husband what despicable cheating joker the chick is. The guy is going to be in Iraq or Afghanistan and she's going to be smoking other dudes' pulls. Do that poor ducker a solid. Redditor 42, she and I are not together. That trust is broken. However, I retained a friend, had a great life lesson, as did she. How good a friend could she be? She ducked some dude and is pregnant with his kid. That doesn't scream friend to me. You kept someone around who can be an okay friend at times while risking your overall emotional health. Besides, how do you explain this relationship to other SOs? Oh, her. Yeah, that's my ex who got knocked up by this dude. Yeah, we still talk. Redditor follow-up, how do you introduce friends? I sure don't introduce any of my friends by detailing the worst thing I know they did in a quick sentence. Redditor 44, I never forgive that. I duly note and downgrade to W or status. I might still bang them, but I'm never going to kid myself it's making love ever again, and a long list of privileges is removed permanently. Not really in the business of treating WORs like loyal, trustworthy people. That's territory for people with low self-esteem and few other options. Redditor 45, I would have told her that I'd forgive her and we could still have a future. If she gets an abortion, I would of course dump her after the abortion. Redditor 46, got cheated on, a lot, for years on end. Didn't know. When she ended our marriage, I tried to get her to come back. She almost did, but chose the other guy at the last moment. That's when I learned there was another guy. Redditor 47, TL, DR, you can see my Vagina from space. Redditor 48, fools you once, shame on her. Fools you twice, shame on you. Fools you with another man's spawn, oh hell no. Redditor 49, being a good human being is overrated. You'll be dead before the end of the century. No one's giving you brownie points. Good guys finish last. Redditor follow-up, but, what the hell are all these tokens labeled brownie points that I keep getting? Are you saying there is no place to turn them in for prizes? Redditor 50, a couple of things about the post that sparked yours. The poster had never had S-time or a GF until he was 20, which turned out to be the antagonist in his post. He had no idea how to react to such a horrible situation except for maybe what he has seen in movies or heard on Reddit, etc. He was very impressionable even though he thought through it for a few days. We all participated because we have no emotional attachment to him, her, or anything other than his brief words. I'm sure hardly any of us who participated, upvoted, whatever would react in that manner which caused you distress. We simply were entertained and probably viewed his former GF as the ducking a shoal who had once betrayed us in our own relevant lives. If you look at the comments in the follow-up post, the majority of us believed him to have made mistakes in his efforts. While most have thought some of what he executed was funny, justified, necessary, or whatever, tricking her into rubbing his man juice on her face is not something any of us 95% would ever condone or do ourselves. I enjoyed reading your story and certainly saw the maturity and the eventual result that followed. I, myself, would not have reacted in that way, but also not in the polar opposite of throwing a fake wedding ring into the lake. There is a rather wide gray area that I'm sure most of us would fit into. No crazy week-long scheme, but Elking told maturity as well. I guess each case is going to have its own uniqueness, so don't lose hope in the rest of us. We are more than capable of reacting in a relatively decent manner. Redditor 51, I think that people who repeatedly forgive their partners for cheating have something akin to battered wife syndrome. If someone is so willing to cheat, it obviously means they couldn't care less about you. It's not about revenge or being angry, but about not wanting to spend any of the short time you have on this planet with someone who treats you like shit. I suggest erasing them from your life entirely. No forgiveness. No lingering anger. Just an empty void where they used to be. Redditor 52, man dude, you made me cry. The same exact thing happened to me. She now has a daughter and a single mother. Redditor 53, I pretended not to know, went out and ducked loads of other girls and made her my body call for months without telling her I knew of her cheating. Eventually she found out about my cheating and had a go at me. I begged forgiveness and asked her to give me another chance. I suggested she use it as a get-out-of-jail-free card for when she did something that could break us up, but she said she would never do anything like that. I told her, that's great baby, I'm glad to hear you say that. To be honest, I only started cheating on you when I found out you were cheating on me. I've never felt like I belonged with a woman before you. They were all just fun girls that I had as time with. Now I know you're just another body call, a duck buddy, so I feel no guilt in seeing other girls like you. I'd like to keep seeing you, because the only thing good about this relationship has been the time and the company. I don't want to give up on either, and you shouldn't either, because that's all we've had that meant anything for months now. And you have to admit, it was good. She said no. Then we had breakup time a few days later when she picked up her stuff. Later we got back together for a quickie when she was getting tired of her new boyfriend. Then another year later we hooked up again for about 2.5 years. Time was fantastic as usual, but I never trusted her still, kept screwing around, and we eventually went our own ways. Redditor follow-up, you can't make a hoe a housewife. Way to know that, and to use it to your advantage. Redditor 54, when it comes to chicks and losing my trust, I have one policy to regain it. She has to give me a arm job. I have never had one, and not one chick has came back into my life to even be told of my policy. I figure if she eats out my ass for trust, then I can trust her again. For ass and forget maybe. Redditor 55, I know she cheated and don't care. She is a free woman and has every right to do what she wants. I don't think her vagina is her heart. We are married with 3 kids and I don't want anyone else for the rest of my life. We don't have an open relationship, I just don't care. I doubt she is sleeping around. She just had fun one night with someone who felt obliged to feel guilty about it, and I bet was disappointed I wasn't upset when I found out. She was relieved I didn't care and wondered why. I explained it the way I did to you people. I love her, people make mistakes, life goes on. Redditor follow-up, you may not want to sleep with anyone else, but if you say she can do what she wants and you don't care, that's pretty much the definition of an open relationship. Redditor 56, I cheated on my boyfriend of 7 years. We had been living together for the last 3, then I moved away to go to grad school. Long story short, met a new guy, cheated on my newly long-distance BF, told him immediately and broke up with him. He didn't speak to me for a long time, but now 3 years later, we are back to being extremely close friends. We had known each other since we were teenagers, we started out as friends, and I am so happy to still have him in my life in some way. If he had acted horribly and sought revenge, I doubt at all we would be as close as we are now. Also, I am still with the guy I cheated on him with. In a way, I think that helps. My ex knows that at least I didn't throw away everything we had for a stupid fling. It was someone that I truly care about, and could see myself staying with. I know a lot of people on here are ranting about how could anyone cheat on someone they supposedly love, etc., but it happens. I never stopped caring about my ex, it was just that things between us weren't as good as they once were, and I knew it would never work out because we wanted very different things out of life. And while I know, as people will point out, that I should have broken up with him as soon as I realized this, it is really hard to make that decision sometimes without a catalyst. I was happy with him, I just realized I wasn't as happy as I knew I could be. So now I have a little more understanding for people who make mistakes. But I still think I would break up with someone if they cheated on me, because I would view it as a consequence of a larger flaw in our relationship, not as a flaw of theirs, as most people on here seem to think. Redditor follow-up: have you seen that film called Two Girls, One Cup? I hear it's a mix of love and shit happening. Redditor 57: I don't ever take cheating personally. It's not a personal thing for me. She cheats, I walk, very simple. No harm done. I don't hate, or feel I have to forgive. She just had an interest for someone else. That's enough to call it a day. The difference is that I never have the urge to stay friends. So I just move on, literally. Redditor follow-up: it's great that you feel that way, and it would make things easier for everyone if we all had that same feeling. Problem is, most people get a lot more emotionally vested in other people, themselves or inanimate objects to be able to just walk away. Most people just can't let go that easily. In the end, it's what make us all individuals. Redditor 58: my girlfriend, who was my high school sweetheart, cheated on me after a 3-year relationship, which was incredibly devastating. I had suspicions, which were evidenced by her lack of punctuality, her pet peeve, and bite marks on her body, which she claimed were caused by her cat. After confronting her about what I thought of her, she attempted to reassure me that nothing was going on. I didn't believe her, but I had no concrete evidence. After we graduated high school 2 months later, I actually caught her and confronted her and ended the relationship. She began calling me and asking for forgiveness and her intent on getting back together. I was very firm and told her no. Eventually we both went off to local colleges, but had no contact with each other. I did not hear from her until 7 months later, when she invited me to a walk in a park we used to jog. I was feeling nostalgic and lonely, so I decided to accept her invitation. After talking to her, I realized that I was partly responsible for her cheating, because I finally admitted to her and myself that I was no longer interested in being in a relationship with her, which in turn caused me to change my behaviors. Obviously, I expressed how angry I was that she not only cheated, but that she wounded my pride, and I understood that I should have been more considerate of her wants and feelings. She filled the void that I left with someone else. We reminisced about how we would get high, drunk, how we would dance at parties, or alone, and jog in the same park. We realized how much fun we both had when we dated, and that the first 2.5 years were wonderful. I also realized that up until the point we grew apart, she was a phenomenal friend to me. As the conversation progressed, she told she was with the same guy she cheated on me with, and expressed the possibility of us getting back together. It was a tempting idea, but one that we both dismissed. I finally grew the balls to not only forgive her, but to ask for her forgiveness. After an emotional hug, we both left and haven't spoken since. 1 year after our meeting, I am not in a committed relationship, but I have moved on, and I am living the normal life of a college student. I suspect she has done the same, but I can't be sure because all I know about her is that she's dating the same guy. Redditor 59: man, if people ever accept that monogamy is an unnatural social construct, they'll sure be an awful lot happier. Redditor follow-up: if people don't want to be monogamous, they should just be upfront about it. Redditor 60: she cheated. I forgave her. I got her pregnant. She had an abortion without telling me. I did not forgive her. She married. He cheated. I laughed.